Prime Minister Anthony Albanese will meet with Chinese President Xi Jinping today at the G20 summit in Bali. It'll be the first formal bilateral meeting between an Australian leader and Chinese leader since 2016. Our political editor, Andrew Clennell, is in Bali and has this report.
On the tarmac at Denpasar Airport, Anthony Albanese finally confirmed news that had been expected for days. He would have a bilateral meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping at the G20. This is the first such meeting between an Australian and a Chinese leader since 2016. The PM said there were no preconditions on the meeting, that in order to end trade sanctions against Australia, there needs to be some engagement between the two countries.
We enter this discussion with goodwill. There are no preconditions on this discussion. I'm looking forward to having constructive dialogue. I've said since I became the Prime Minister, but before then as well, that dialogue is always a good thing. We need to talk in order to develop mutual understanding.
The Prime Minister was cagey when I asked him later when his meeting with Xi was confirmed, but said the timing of the announcement was agreed with the Chinese leadership.
Minister, when was the meeting locked in?
It was locked in when it was locked in. We agreed when there would be an announcement mutually by Australia and China.
Speaking to Sky on the sidelines of the B20 summit, Treasurer Jim Chalmers spoke of the importance of this first formal bilateral meeting between Australian and Chinese leaders since Malcolm Turnbull was Prime Minister 6 years ago.
I think it's a really important opportunity to engage. We've said for some time now we want to try and stabilise this absolutely key relationship, and that's what this conversation will be all about. Of course, we have our fair share of differences, but we believe that if you engage meaningfully and calmly and in a considered way, then that gives you the best opportunity of stabilising the relationship.
The Xi-Albanese meeting comes a day after the first face-to-face bilateral meeting as leaders between Joe Biden and President Xi. A readout of the opening remarks from that meeting indicated a conciliatory tone from the Chinese leader. Biden had spoken leading into the meeting of both sides setting red lines for each other in terms of what they were prepared to cop.
And I know Xi Jinping. I spent more time with any other world leader. I know him well. He knows me. There's no, we have very little misunderstanding. We just got to figure out where the red lines are and what are the most important things to each of us.
Insiders feel that to get consensus in a communique from this G20 summit is unlikely, given the unwillingness of Russia and China to agree with other countries' views on the war in Ukraine and its effect on the energy crisis besetting the world.
But the Prime Minister's presence here at the B20 and the G20, I think, reflects the huge reset that the Prime Minister's doing on foreign policy.
The Australian PM ended his day with an address to the B20 summit after a bilateral meeting with the Indonesian leader Joko Widodo, where he trotted out a familiar line.
Inclusive growth, because the quality of our response and the measure of our recovery must hold no one back and leave no one behind.